We start this hour here in Japan, where coronavirus vaccinations are now underway. About 40,000 healthcare workers will receive the jab in the first phase of the rollout. The director of this hospital was the first person in the country to receive the shot.
I think the coronavirus vaccine is the trump card in the pandemic. If data from our shots is analyzed and used by public health officials, I would.
About 800 staff members of the hospital will be inoculated in the initial round. After the shots, the recipients will be monitored for 15 minutes. There have been no reports of any severe reactions.
I think it'll be great if I can work without feeling anxious for myself or society, so I'm relieved that I'm vaccinated and can be part of this first step.
Healthcare workers at 100 hospitals across Japan are receiving Pfizer's vaccine. The government will analyze data from the first 20,000 recipients to check for side effects. The inoculations will eventually be expanded to about 3.7 million medical workers and then to elderly people.
We should bring down the number of new infections as much as possible before the nationwide vaccination rollout. That will pave the way for getting the virus under control.
One business leader is welcoming the development.
We are very much hopeful that we'll be able to increase economic activities while preventing the spread of infection.
But a member of the government's expert panel is warning against being too hasty because that may lead to unexpected problems or accidents.
Speed and safety are equally important. We must try to have as many people as possible safely inoculated.
Health authorities across Japan reported more than 1,400 new coronavirus infections on Wednesday, with 79 deaths. 607 people are currently in serious condition. Data compiled by the University of Oxford shows about 70 nations have begun vaccinations, although the size and scope of each rollout is different. Europe and the Americas had an early start in the inoculation race. Worldwide, officials have reported they administered at least 178 million doses of some sort of COVID-19 vaccine. That includes both initial shots and follow-ups. The U.S. is leading the world in sheer total with nearly 53 million jabs. That's followed by China and more distantly the United Kingdom and India. But when you take into account population size, Israel jumps far ahead of everyone else. 46% of people there have gotten at least one dose. The United States is aiming to boost vaccination rates by deploying military personnel to hard-hit California.
What we face today is a threat to the homeland. It may be a little bit of an asymmetric threat called COVID, but there's no more sacred or noble mission than taking care of one's family here in the homeland.
About 220 military medics at this LA parking lot are expected to give shots to about 6,000 people daily. Meanwhile, Oxford University has started a clinical study to find out if a vaccine it developed with AstraZeneca is safe and effective for children. Currently, it's used for people aged 18 or older.
It was good. It felt good to be helping the research and get it rolled out into children to protect us.
U.S. firm Pfizer is also conducting a study on children with its COVID vaccine. The Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee panel has pegged the Olympics minister to succeed Mori Yoshiro after he offered to step down last week. If Hashimoto Seiko accepts the request, the new president of the committee could be officially decided as early as this week. The 56-year-old minister is an Olympic heavyweight herself, competing in 4 Winter Games and 3 Summer Games in her sports of speed skating and cycling. She won the bronze medal at the 1992 Albertville Games. After hanging up her skates and cycling shoes, she headed the Japanese teams at Sochi and Rio de Janeiro. On Wednesday, Hashimoto stayed mum when asked again if she's been approached.
The Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Organizing Committee has set up a panel and is now in the selection process. It's a personnel matter, so I have nothing more to say.
People in Tokyo have no choice but to wait and see how things develop.
I can expect her to do her best because of her past activities and her age.
As the world is watching, I hope someone will be chosen through a transparent selection procedure so as not to prolong the process.
Modi offered to resign last week after sparking a storm of outrage over comments seen as demeaning to women. The panel of 4 men and 4 women had agreed on 5 qualities required of the new president, including a deep understanding of gender equality. If all goes to plan, the organizing committee is expected to hold a board meeting as early as this week to elect a new president. It'll convene on Thursday to discuss relevant procedures. Japan and the United States have agreed Japan's share of the costs of stationing U.S. forces in the country will remain at its current level next fiscal year. Japan will pay about $2 billion. Japan's cost-sharing agreement is usually decided every 5 years. As host country, it covers expenses such as base workers' wages and some utility bills. The current agreement is due to expire at the end of this fiscal year in March. The latest talks started in November, but the two sides couldn't reach an agreement as former U.S. President Donald Trump wanted a significant increase to Japan's contribution. Negotiations continued under the Biden administration. Under the new agreement, Japan's share will be kept at around $1.9 billion for fiscal 2021.
We reached an agreement on the matter soon after U.S. President Joe Biden took office. The early conclusion will increase the level of trust and demonstrate it to the international community.
Officials from the two countries will continue their talks about Japan's contributions for the following years. They plan to wrap up their negotiations by the end of this year. They're also expected to discuss bilateral cooperation in cyberspace, outer space, and other new fields as well. Now to Myanmar, where demonstrations against the military takeover are getting larger. The latest protests came after leader Aung San Suu Kyi was handed a new charge following her detention in the February 1st military coup. She was supposed to be released this week, but will likely remain in custody. In the largest city, Yangon, thousands of demonstrators again took to the streets to protest. People have blocked roads after their vehicles supposedly stalled, a tactic that was encouraged on social media. They're also calling on government officials to participate in the strike.
I'm protesting the coup even though it means I can't work and make money. We want to prevent government employees from going to work.
On Tuesday, Aung San Suu Kyi's lawyer said that she'd been accused of violating the country's natural disaster management law. She was already facing charges of illegally importing handheld radios and using them without permission. President Win Min was also detained in the coup. The military has labeled the protests as violent and has been increasing pressure by cutting off the internet for 3 consecutive nights. By keeping Aung San Suu Kyi in custody, the military hopes that it'll be able to limit her influence on the public. We spoke to an expert in Myanmar about what's behind the military's thinking. Kin Zaw Win is a political analyst and former political prisoner. He points out the military leaders are afraid of Aung San Suu Kyi's popularity and her potential political power, even though they plan to hold a general election 6 months after a year-long state of emergency.
You know, in the long past, if she had been under house arrest and she wasn't able to run, that's one thing. Now she's completely cut off. This is very important for the junta, for the regime, you know. They really have to keep her out of the public eye, you know, and remove her from the public. And they can do whatever they like.
Kim Zaw-win says the best way to diffuse the increasing tensions between the protesters and the military is to hold an election soon.
The momentum is going up, and there has to come to arrive at a breaking point. Military holds early elections, you know, and that'll really diffuse the situation.
Residents of much of the United States and parts of Mexico have been contending with cold weather and heavy snow. Our meteorologist Sakamori has the details.
Much of the U.S. has been contending with heavy snow and record low temperatures. And in fact, the cold air is also blanketing northern Mexico. Take a look at this footage. An unprecedented streak of cold weather has reached northern Mexico, bringing snow and frigid temperatures the past few days. Residents were seen outside playing in the snow, which is unusual for the region. The chilly conditions have caused major problems at power plants in Texas, which also affected the electricity in Mexico along the border, leading to blackouts for more than 4.7 million residents. So it's very rare to see heavy snow in northern Mexico, but it does occur. And in fact, cold air will continue to grip parts of northern Mexico and most parts of the United States into your Thursday, but slight changes on the way as we go into the weekend. The temperatures as follows on your Thursday: -4 in Oklahoma City, Atlanta 8 degrees, and New York City could see sub-zero temperatures on Thursday, but Miami will remain on the hot side, about 30 degrees for the high. Meanwhile, a blizzard is still hitting northern Japan. In 12 hours, nearly 60 centimeters has fallen in Itoigawa. That's the record for the month of February. More snow and strong winds are expected on your Thursday. In fact, the Hokuriku region might see up to 1.4 meters of snowfall into Friday morning. Be careful of slippery roads and also avalanches. The Pacific side will remain dry, and Tokyo will continue to see drier conditions. In the southern hemisphere, in the south, there's a tropical depression near the Philippines. This system will likely intensify to the first tropical storm of the year for the western Pacific within the next 24 hours. And we have another tropical depression near Madagascar. It's projected to bring a chance for thunderstorms. That's it for me. Stay safe.
NATO defence ministers have been discussing the future of the alliance's 10,000-strong military training mission in Afghanistan. The Biden administration is reviewing a May deadline for the US troop withdrawal set by Donald Trump. The world's first human trials where people will be deliberately infected with COVID-19 have been given the go-ahead in the UK. Security forces in Myanmar are reported to have fired shots after some of the biggest demonstrations since the military seized power at the start of the month. The shooting was heard after dark at Mandalay train station. And the Queen's husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, has been admitted to hospital after feeling unwell for a few days. Buckingham Palace says it's just a precaution and it's not COVID-related, and that the Prince is expected to remain there for a few days.